Hey, what's up? Lo here. Let's talk about controllers because I am an absolute sucker for controllers, like seriously. I think controllers are the only way to really play your plugins because just clicking with a mouse ain't no fun. Music is multiple parameters and you need two hands. It's like shaping things together and against each other and not one click at a time. And that's where this little guy comes in. The Melbourne Instruments Roto-Control. Quick transparency before I continue. Melbourne Instruments sent me this unit. I did not pay for it, but they don't get to see this video before it goes live. And also they ask not for anything specific. But before I show you why I think this controller is so special, let me tell you why I'm so damn picky with controllers in the first place. Back in 2004, when I was recording full-time for MTV, my studio there had an Icon D command. This thing was an absolute beast. Flying faders, programmable knobs, real hardware feedback, an absolute dream to work with. But what else would you expect for a controller that was worth 38,000 USD? Then I moved to Canada. I bought a Control 24. This beauty was only 8K. Same deal, loved it. Basically gave me everything the Command D gave me and I was so happy. And then Avid did the most Avid thing ever. They dropped the support for the controller. And overnight, my $8,000 console turned into an $8,000 piece of crap. I couldn't sell it, it didn't work with newer versions of Pro Tools anymore, it was just dead. And that moment stuck with me. I don't just trust a company anymore. And I know that if a piece of hardware only works with one program, you are just in the hands of their program and they can decide whatever they want to do whenever they want. This pissed me off so much that I moved to Ableton and I got the Push 2. And honestly, this is an amazing controller. I use it on tons of projects, the knobs feel great and the screen just looks super cool. It's a tight integration and just a dream to work with. But I always wished they just released the top part. The bottom part with the launch controller is super awesome to play with, but I didn't feel it needed to be on my desk right in front of me. And there's one simple problem with the Push, and that is that it's made for Ableton and Ableton only. Yes, there are scripts, so you can run it with Bitwig and probably other DAWs, but now you're running a script on a proprietary product. You're kind of getting into a hacking situation. And I do not trust hacks in a professional workflow. What if something breaks and I have a deadline tomorrow? I'm absolutely toast. So the Push is great, but when I moved on to Bitwig for all my sound design and I'm doing my main sequencing in Cubase, the Push started collecting dust. And then you have things like the Softube Console 1 and the SSL Controller Collection. Beautiful systems, a very cool idea, but everything runs inside a wrapper. Your plugins have to live inside that wrapper. And what happens if that wrapper breaks? Your session breaks. Same happened with Native Instruments, the Complete Control. I loved the concept. I bought the keyboard because I thought those 8 knobs on the native controller could have the same idea as the Ableton Push. But it just does not work the same way. It's not only very frustrating to run plugins inside of another plugin, I literally had libraries that disappeared from the browser after an update. If you're in a professional work situation, this cannot happen. I want a controller that helps me and not a controller that I need to babysit. Same counts for Softube. If one of the companies makes an update, it can easily break the whole system and you're absolute toast. So enter the Roto. So when I first saw the Roto Control, I honestly thought that those motorized knobs, it's fun. I thought it was just a gimmick, but oh man, was I wrong. The first time I clicked on a plugin in Bitwig and all the knobs jumped to its exact value, I immediately felt like working with flying faders again. And because it's super thin and lightweight, you can always keep it at the sweet spot right in between your monitors. Let me tell you why this changes everything. When I'm testing a compressor, I'll often just slam the thresholds, then flip through the ratios, and then bring the threshold back and then tweak the attack and release all together at the same time, so I hear what it does to the music. You can't do that with a mouse. Even a clever plugin with auto gain, it ain't just the same. Or with your EQ, I like to gain it up, I get a tight cue, sweep the frequencies, then widen the cue and pull it back in. And all in one fluid motion. It feels musical, it feels intentional. And the tactile zero indent helps you find the zero spot instantly. Even if I want to add some highs, and I'll do this with the mouse, I find myself clicking and moving up the highs just a couple of dB. When I use the knobs on the Roto Control, I find myself pushing the highs all the way up while at the same time moving the frequencies and then pulling them back in, reining it in to the point where I actually want it to be. This is a total different way of working. And here's the real genius about the Roto Control. The Roto Control does not host your plugins. It does not run a wrapper. It does not trap your sessions. It just reads what your DAW is already doing. Your plugins stay where they belong. The project remains future-proof and the Roto Control just ties into it. If the controller dies tomorrow, the session still will be the same. Yes, your Roto Control has specific DAW scripts like Bitwig and Ableton, and more are coming, but even without them, you can still control plugin parameters. I've been using it inside a Cubase, and weirdly enough, it does a few things that I wish it was doing inside a Bitwig. So yeah, I went into this thinking that the Roto Control was going to be a fun little novelty, but this thing genuinely changed how I mix, how I shape my sounds. It gives me the feel like the old days on the D command, without locking me into a proprietary system that might die on me one day. It gives all of my plugins inside my DAW a real tactile control. I'm using both hands, which is how music should be made. Alright, now let me actually show you how I've been using it with Bitwig, how the Roto App works, and how the motorized behavior makes such a huge difference. Let's dive in. Here we have the Roto Control. The layout is pretty simple. We have a MIDI mode, which you can program yourself. This is programmed to control all mix behaviors in Cubase. More on that later. We have a plugin mode, which takes you right away to the plugin on your track. And if you press select, you can choose whatever plugin you want to control. Then we have the mix mode. It goes standard to volume at the top, and right now I have record arm at the bottom. If I press select, I can change that to solo or mute. So now it will tell mute under the specific tracks. And if I want to mute all 4 clarinets, there I go. I can all mute them at once. The knobs, by the way, feel extremely nice. All the tracks follow the same names and the same color schemes. And next to changing the buttons under the tracks, if I press select, I can also make the rotaries move from volume to pan or to effects synth. The rotaries, of course, also follow the automation on screen. So let's press record arm and let's play around with the volume of the synth. And if I press play again, then over here you have your transport buttons. I can do play, stop, record, overdub, loop, punch in, punch out, and restore automation. If I have a track selected, I can go to function and it will show my volume, my pan, and my effects return tracks. If I move out of function and I would go to woods, now I can dive in here. That is it for mix mode. Now let's move into plugin. It opens up the last plugin you have selected. If I press on the select button, it shows me all the plugins that are on this track. The buttons in the bottom right now are bypass buttons. So I can bypass the Pro Q or turn it back on. I can bypass all of them at the same time. It's a very quick way to play around, even just to have 2 different plugins behind each other and just A/B them, which one sounds better. Very easy, very fast. Now, if I press select, I can choose what plugin I want the Roto Control to be focused on. If I do the Valhalla Vintage Verb, it loads in my preset for the Vintage Verb. I got my mix, my pre-delay, my decay, my reverb modes. This is very, very nice. Because if you want to do this with your mouse, you have to click on it, then choose the one, and then this is the way to go through them. It's too many steps and it doesn't feel nice. And now I can just click through all the modes. And as you see, I don't really know how to explain this, but this knob is now, these are all clicks. I cannot, like, this is a rotary and this clicks through all the different modes. Same for 70s, 80s, or the 2000s. And these are 3 clicks that I have. There's nothing on this track. So this rotary knob is an endless rotary knob. The decay is a normal knob, and it stops at 0 and it stops at 10. The selector of what reverb you have is a 3-step system, and there's 3 steps under this button. And of course, if I select another plugin, that whole system is different. It's all gone. It's so great that every knob can be either a normal rotary knob or a switch. That aside, let's grab the Citro EQ. Then, as you see, we have the 2 switches over here that are 3-stage switches. I put them under the buttons over here, and you can even see this is 100 Hertz and this one is 30K. And I can just switch through the 3 different modes. And the same 100 Hertz, 300 Hertz, or 50 Hertz. At this point, the frequency, the mid frequency, is a actual switch. So I can just switch through the frequencies instead of it just being a knob. And then the bell gain is a normal gain with a little dent in the middle. So even if I'm not looking at the screen, I feel like that's where 0 is. And then here I can just switch it through the frequencies. Let's move to the compressor plus. So I got my threshold, ratio, attack, and release. And here I got my over, glue, resist, smash. And I can not only see it on the screen, but also on my little screen, it gives you exactly what switch does what. I got my auto timing over here and then a dry wet button. And then with the arrows, I can actually move through the different pages. So in the next page, I have my 3 different kinds of compressors, my knee and relax. And then here I can choose what kind of saturation it has, the clear, prism, transistor, or saturate. This I all programmed myself. I highly advise you to go in all your plugins and synths yourself. It is so nice to have the ADSRs for every synth on the same page, and like you can really program it exactly the way you want it to be. I'm going to show you how it comes straight out of the box. If I do double arrow, it will show you my quick controls, and those are pre-programmed. So as you see here, all the quick controls are pre-programmed, and I can go through all the different modes. It is really nice that plugin that comes with Bitwig. If you press the double arrow, it is already laid out. But again, the thing really starts to live if you do your own programming inside and make it make sense for your brain situation, because this is different per person. We also have the link button over here. If you press it, it starts blinking. And now I have the option switch to different tracks, or even click on a different plugin, but the plugin that I had last will always stay in focus. And if I turn it off, it will move to whatever plugin I click on the screen. Those are basically all the main functions. It is super simple and it works like a dream. How do we actually set this up? Let's do this together. Let's grab a new effect. Okay, here we got the flamingo verb. And now I select the flamingo verb. It is blank because I have not programmed this. How does it work? Well, it is rather simple. You open the Roto app. This app lives in between your DAW and the actual Roto Control. But everything you program in here will be stored inside the Roto Control itself. So if I take this Roto Control and go to another computer, the layouts will be exactly the same. It recognizes the ID of the actual plugin. So also for external plugins, everything gets stored inside the Roto Control. You can take it wherever you want, you plug it in, and it will always be the same. We were gonna do the flamingo reverb. You press learn and you press a button that you want it linked to a plugin. So I touch this button, it goes into learning. Now I'll touch the drive button here and you see it going up and down, and it learned the button and it's taken the button position right here. I can do the same for the second knob. I want that to be time. And then the third one, I want it to be width. And here I go, drive, time, and width, they're in there. And now I can go into the Roto Control. I can choose if I want them to have different colors. I can change the name because I wanted to have my own name. I don't know why. And then here I can choose to have it be a normal knob, or I want it to have steps, and then I can choose here how many steps. If I want it to have 3 steps, and I'm gonna call them 1, 2, and 3. Now this button has 3 steps, and I can click through and you can see where you are on the screen. I'm gonna go back to knob, and this is center indent, and this indent gives you the center position. And this is all I have to do. I don't have to save anything. This is it. I can now close the plugin and let's go to another track and enter the flamingo here. Flamingo verb, and put it in there, and look, it jumped straight to the buttons that are here. That's all it is. If you want to change it up, you hold learn pressed, and then you can clear whatever you recorded. Now all the knobs are gone again. All right, that was the Roto Controller. I really love this thing. It honestly feels like I'm playing with just the top of the push, except now I can program it every way exactly how I want to. And I love seeing how far controllers have come. I mean, I used to work on the Icon D command and it took up like half the room like this. And now we're basically back to this small thing with 8 knobs, but they managed to make it more functional. It's amazing. Although I do miss the faders. Melbourne Instruments, if you ever make a version with faders and that combine it with the knobs, man, I will be completely blown away by that. But hey, a man can dream, right? What actually makes this thing so special? It is how it directly talks to your DAW. No wrapper, no weird workarounds. It just communicates straight with the plugins in your session. And honestly, I don't really know where to compare it to, other than the Ableton Push, where I compared it to before, or maybe the Nectar Panorama CS12, I think it is. But even then, this feels like it's total own concept. This specific one is the Bitwig edition. Hence the orange knobs. It comes with Bitwig Studio Producer or a free 12-month upgrade plan. The regular controller has black knobs, if you prefer that look. If you're thinking about getting one, I'll leave my affiliate links below. Perfect Circuit for North America or Thomann for Europe. If you use one of those links, I get a small kickback, and it generally helps me keep this channel going. At the end of the day, anything that gets you closer to the music you actually want to make, that's a win. And if you think the Roto Controller might be that for you, then definitely check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.